Hi, I'm Mike Ammons at our San Francisco studios, and if you want to continue watching Washington spring football, tune into Pac-12 Washington or the Pac-12 Now app. For those watching on Pac-12 Network, we're going to take you to Spokane for Washington State spring football.
Here, we try to focus on each day, get better every day, compete with yourself, but you got to keep improving and keep taking a step.
When the Cougars have the football in an air raid offense.
Well, the Washington State Cougars are one of the more entertaining teams to watch in college football.
They've got playmakers on each side of the ball.
They got a chance to make a run this Pac-12.
Our mindset for all of us is the Pac-12 championship.
We're definitely going to keep improving throughout the year. This is our year.
It's time for kickoff for the Crimson and Gray spring game for Washington State in Spokane. That means the marshmallows are cooking, so are the sandwiches. They're out and ready. And, of course, the grilled meat right here outside of Joe Albi Stadium in Spokane. Crimson Gray for 2018 as both sides of the ball get ready their final steps as they go through ready for the opening kickoff. And hi, everybody. Welcome aboard. Mike Crispino, Evan Moore will be joined by Cindy Brunson in just a couple of minutes. The theme this year is transition, a new beginning, a new era at Washington State. 19 players on the two deep were seniors. They're gone. 6 new coaches, and they got to replace their rocket quarterback, Luke Falk. It was supposed to be Tyler Helinski, but he passed away tragically in January, so the university's trying to overcome that emotionally, and it's with heavy hearts that came into the spring practices.
Yeah, just a terrible, heartbreaking tragedy that took place here with Tyler Helinski recently, and it's clear from talking to the guys this week, these guys they're moving on from this tragedy. It's a process, but they're going to do it together. They lost a brother, so it's a difficult thing to deal with.
Yeah, there's a number of possible quarterback people we'll see in the next couple of hours here. We're going to take a look at some of them, and they've all got a shot at it, and Mike Leach is looking closely at these two in particular, Trey Tinsley and Anthony Gordon, both redshirt juniors.
Yeah, it's been a spirited competition throughout the course of the spring. Neither guy has taken a snap at this level, so there's a lot of inexperience to deal with, but both guys have handled it really well. Mike Leach has praised them quite a bit over the course of the week, but the other guy to keep an eye on is the incoming. He's an early enrollee, the true freshman Cameron Cooper, the all-world quarterback out of high school. Mike Leach feels really good about this kid, but one thing is clear, it takes experience in the system to make Mike Leach feel comfortable about what he has, and it might take some time for this kid to come along. Big opportunity today, though.
Yeah, new kid on the block. We'll get a close look at him. Now on the defensive side, they have a new defensive coordinator, Tracy Claeys. He was the former head coach at Minnesota, and he's a guy that's had a great history with developing defensive backs who ended up in the NFL, among other things. So we're looking forward to see his defense on the field today.
Yeah, it's rare with a Mike Leach team to be talking about defense as much as we have, and that's because Alex Grinch had so much improvement over the course of his time here. But watching Tracy Claeys today, first time with live bullets, it's going to be very interesting to see his system, how he replaces some of these playmakers like Hercules Mataafa, Daniel Equali, Isaac Dotson, Frankie Louvu. These are all very good football players. He has to replace all those guys to try to reach the excellence they showed on defense for the most part last year.
Yeah, he gets Peyton Pelluer back. He gets a 6th-year senior back, and he also gets Jihad Woods, the sophomore from San Diego. He's a tackling machine.
Yeah, outside of Peyton Pelluer, 2 guys that really stood out last year are Jihad Woods, like you mentioned, and Justice Rogers, both guys that have a chance to really make an impact this year.
Back with a kickoff in just a moment. Stay tuned. Cindy Brunson meets with head coach Mike Leach when we continue the Crimson and Gray game on Pac-12 Network.
You're watching Pac-12 Network, where champions play. Available on Xfinity.
Hiring was always a huge challenge. Endless hours on job sites with not a lot to show for it. Then, I found ZipRecruiter. They figured out hiring. I post my job, they put it all over the web, and they send me the right people, because their technology is smart. ZipRecruiter often sends me the right person in 24 hours.
The smartest way to hire. ZipRecruiter, official hiring partner of the Pac-12 Conference. Try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/Pac-12.
Finally got me, Ben.
What's that, Rick?
The Clark Street crater, the mother of all potholes. For decades, it's tormented the people of this town. They try to fill it, but it always returns. Got me good.
But you know, State Farm's got you, too.
Yeah? You hear that? You ain't nothing!
Are you trash talking a pothole?
Yeah. Yeah, I am.
Go with the one that's here to help life go right. State Farm.
This is important news for women using birth control medications and devices. If you or a loved one have been diagnosed with a pseudotumor after using one of these birth control drugs or devices, you may be eligible for a cash and medical expenses. Contact the law firm of Davis & Crump right now if you or a loved one have used one of these birth control medications or devices and were diagnosed with a pseudotumor to see if you are eligible for a cash award and medical expenses. Call now. Operators are standing by.
We clearly need to rethink security for our new home.
Yikes. Well, with Xfinity Home, you'll have everything you need to protect your home with 24/7 professional monitoring that you can access anywhere.
Xfinity Home cameras.
Xfinity Home. Simple, easy, awesome. Add Xfinity Home and get up to 5 extra door and window sensors. Plus, add 24/7 video recording and get a free camera. Call, go online, or demo in an Xfinity store today.
Coming up next, we've got a full day of spring football.
Go Ducks.
Pac-12 spring football coverage begins next on Pac-12 Network. Tuesday, will the men of Troy take the high road against the Dirtbags? Long Beach State, USC, Pac-12 baseball, Tuesday at 6 on Pac-12 Network.
Welcome back to Joe Albies Stadium with Cougars head coach Mike Leach. Coach, this is your 7th Crimson and Gray game. You've got 5 guys vying for QB1. Who has the edge right now?
I think Tinsley and Gordon do. Those are the guys that are going to play the first half, and they've been around longer, so they have a little more experience, but they've also played well throughout the spring.
You had the #1 pass defense in the Pac-12 last season. New defensive coordinator in Tracy Claeys. How's his unit coming together?
I think they're doing good. We've got we've got a lot of bodies out there running around playing hard, and then guys are starting to emerge. So I think they've been, pretty steady. Spring, it's always you're mixing and matching a little bit, but no, I think they've done good.
And how about special teams? We've been hearing a lot of good things about Max Borghi, maybe being a running back and helping the special teams unit as well.
Yeah, I think that's the case. I think he'll play on special teams also. Jameer Calvin figures in on special teams as a returner also, and then Travell Harris. But I think that, we try to get a lot of drill work done. We work special teams more than a lot of teams do over spring, and we're not going to do a lot of it now other than, in this game, other than what we've done pre-practice. It's going on right now as we speak, so we'll get our work there. But a lot of drills. We have 2 periods a day on special teams, so.
All right, thanks so much for the time, Coach. Good luck and good health today.
All right, well, thank you so much.
And what better way to get ready for a scrimmage than Bull in the Ring? One of your favorite drills, I know, back at Stanford.
That'll get the energy going, Mike. You want to get a group ready to play? It's Saturday morning or, Saturday afternoon. You got guys that just got off the bus, had a long drive from Pullman. You want to get the energy going. Drills like this, like Oklahoma and Bull in the Ring, this brings emotion. You hear the noise of guys screaming. It's competing. It's fun to watch.
And fun to participate in, it looks like. So the format for today's spring game, the Crimson and Gray game, they'll play 4 15-minute quarters. The ball will be on the 25-yard line, no kickoffs. And after the punts, they'll put it on the 35-yard line. First half, they'll have a normal clock. Second half, they'll go with a running clock. So we get a chance to see a lot of different players who are maybe getting a chance to move up to starting roles. You got some junior college transfers. First look for Washington State fans for them. And, the red shirts who didn't really play last year get their opportunity in these spring practices and scrimmages, and a big opportunity today.
Yeah, spring is a great chance for competition. And just like we had off the top with Cindy talking to Coach Leach, first question she asked was quarterback related. And we can't ignore the fact that this team loses a guy in Luke Falk who had 14,000. Now, hear me out here. 14,481 career passing yards. That's best all time in the Pac-12. He surpassed Sean Mannion last year. And he also leads the Pac-12 in career passing touchdowns. 119, surpassed Barkley last year. So that's a massive void that he leaves behind. So front and center today, one of the QB competitions we're looking at is at quarterback with Trey Tinsley and Anthony Gordon. Neither guy has taken a snap at this level, but surprisingly, no one's really panicking at all about this development of losing Falk. Luke Falk, like you mentioned, just a prolific career. just does.
Falk is responsible for so many wins, and Washington State has really been on a roll the last 3 years. They went 26-13, and he had a lot to do with that.
And that's the biggest thing. I mean, the key actors, if we talk about the ascent of Washington State over the last 3 years, a lot of these key actors, Luke Falk, Alex Grinch on defense, and other players like Hercules Mataafa, these guys are gone. And so, I mean, here's a snap of it. I mean, we got Luke Falk, Jamal Morrow. These are a lot of really good football players down this list. If you go down to some of the defensive guys, Hercules Mataafa, Daniel Equali, Frankie Louvu, we'll talk more about this today, but a lot of big shoes to fill across the board for this Washington State offense and defense.
They had 3 of their 5 offensive linemen who played 130 games together are gone as well. So the offensive line has plenty of work to do and getting to be cohesive as we're underway. And a little flip out to the flat net is broken up, and a nice play right there by Pono Loalea, the junior who transferred from Lincoln Community College.
This is something you see a lot of in this offense, getting the ball out in the flat to James Williams. Good job of the defensive player knocking it down. And James Williams is a big target for them as a receiver. Now, he's a running back, but last year he led the team in receiving with 71 receptions. So that's a feature of what they do offensively. A lot of plays out of the backfield. He doesn't line up at receiver much, but they will throw to him a ton out of the backfield.
Trey Tinsley out in the flat completes a pass and a good gain. A catch made by James Williams, the junior. Will set up a 3rd down and looks to be about 4.
So another note on James Williams, obviously one of the key playmakers in this offense. He had 81 targets last year, 3 recorded drops. Talk about a guy with good hands out of the backfield that's reliable. James Williams is that guy. And if you're Trey Tinsley and you're trying to get easy receptions to start this thing off and put your best foot forward, he's fed James Williams twice, which makes a lot of sense given how reliable he's been.
All right, Tinsley in the shotgun. Steps and fires, complete. Out to his left side, good for a 1st down, a ball at the 41-yard line.
Another reliable option for this offense is Kyle Sweet, 13 starts last year and 58 catches for 533 yards. And the other thing to keep an eye on here, Mike, when we talk about just conceptually what this offense does, they don't ever call a run play in the huddle. They ask the quarterback to step up to the line of scrimmage with a pass play in mind, and he can check into a run based on box count and different fronts that the defense is doing. So that's a lot to put on a guy that hasn't played a lot of snaps, or really hasn't played any snaps at this level. And we'll see how Trey Tinsley handles it.
All right, 2 backs split to each side of Tinsley, and he's able to complete the pass. Good for a 1st down into plus territory. And the catch made by Kyle Sweet, a 6-foot senior out of California.
Again, a productive guy last year. I asked Mike Leach about his receivers, and he points out Kyle Sweet is maybe not the most dynamic down-the-field receiver like we saw from Tay Martin at times last year, number 1, but Kyle Sweet is that reliable option. And if you're a coach and a quarterback, you're going to put more value on reliability and consistency over down-the-play explosive threats.
And Washington State's led the Pac-12 in passing yards 4 straight years. 7 straight years they've averaged over 300 yards a game passing. Here's a handoff, the first handoff on a rushing play of the ball game, a gain of about 3 that time.
Yeah, that time we had Keith Harrington, who last year only had 23 yards rushing, was used mostly on special teams, but that's a good chance to bring up the running back competition. James Williams is kind of the bell cow at that position, but today we're also going to see number 21, Max Borghi, the true freshman who's done really well over the course of the spring. Coaches are very impressed. They think he could get some time this year behind James Williams.
Tinsley now on 2nd and 7. Man in motion, they flip it. And the sweep right, good enough for close to a 1st down. Renard Bell, the wide receiver, the sophomore out of Los Angeles, close to a 1st down, and he does get to the 1st down marker.
A little end around. You'll notice he kind of gives him a little pitch. That ends up being a pass. We talked about, are we going to see a run play today? I thought we might have saw one there, but he gave that little pitch. Ends up being that counts as a pass for Trey Tinsley on that play. But Renard Bell, good slot player, 40 catches last year, 538 yards and 3 touchdowns. So he's a guy that has some experience for them. Another guy that can fill in after the loss of Tavares Martin Jr. and Isaiah Johnson-Mack at receiver last year. 2 dynamic playmakers that are no longer here in this offense. So they need guys to step up.
Empty backfield for Tinsley. Stands in, fires, complete. Again, it's Sweet. And Sweet down near the 25-yard line. Good for a 1st down. Dylan Sherman made the tackle. Sherman, the linebacker, the sophomore from Mission Viejo, California.
One of the things we're already seeing that neutralizes a pass rush. And remember last year, this speed D that we talked about with Washington State, they were really good at being disruptive and getting to the quarterback. But one of the best antidotes to that, if you're Mike Leach, get the ball out quick. And he dealt with it a lot last year going against this defense in practice. And you've seen the ball come out really quick. Quick decisions by Trey Tinsley so far, which is a big plus for him.
All right, 3 wideouts left, 2 right. Tinsley rolls right, fires downfield, and through the hands of the intended receiver, Darian Moulton. Or was it Travell Harris, rather?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch the secondary today because that's a position on that side of the ball. You talk to Tracy Claeys, the new defensive coordinator. He wants to establish depth at that position. He actually feels pretty good. Despite losing Mata'afa and Daniel Equali, he feels pretty good about what he has in his front 7. He knows they're young, but we have speed and athleticism is what he says, but we have to establish depth in the secondary, and we'll talk about that as the day goes on.
Yeah, you got to establish depth, and you got to get pressure to help your DBs. This one out in the flat, dropped that time by James Williams. A rarity there.
A rarity is right.
The junior from Burbank. Would you say he just dropped 3 balls last year?
On 81 targets. Now hear me out. 81 targets. He had 3 drops all year last year. And again, led the team in receiving.
Well, the ball was thrown a little behind him, but that's still no excuse.
No,
you got to make that
catches.
Got to make that catch.
Help your young quarterback out, bring that ball in and get some yards.
Yes, 71 catches. Big number, almost 500 yards. All right, Tinsley, 3rd down here now, 3rd and long, stands in, fires, and it is caught by Kyle Sweet. 2 defensive backs had their hands on it, but Sweet comes up with it, and he is inside the 10-yard line at the 5. How did that ball get through there?
I'm sitting here scratching my head. I can't wait to see the replay. They go empty, so they don't really get much of a pass rush to speak of. And boy, does he thread the needle there. What a nice throw. It actually looked closer from where we were sitting than it looked on the replay. But once again, Kyle Sweet, he's at, now this offense doesn't have a tight end. The air raid offense does not use a tight end. So guys like Kyle Sweet become that pass or that quarterback's best friend over the middle and take the place of normally what a tight end.
He fires in the corner, and it's caught for a touchdown for the Crimson. It's Renard Bell, the sophomore. Again, Tinsley, strong throw to the long side of the field for a touchdown.
And one thing Mike Leach has proven with the way his offense works, we're always going to have receivers. We have athletes at those positions. If we have a guy under center that consistently delivers the football just like this, we're going to have a chance. And that's why most people around here aren't all that concerned about the fact that, yes, you lose Luke Falk. He is an icon when it comes to Washington State football. But they know one of these guys is probably going to emerge given the success that Mike Leach has had with quarterbacks and how this system works on offense.
Here's an important kick. And there have been a lot of important ones this spring for Jack Crane. He's a sophomore. He's been perfect from field goal range. And that was one of the question marks. Who is going to be the place kicker for the Cougars this year?
Absolutely. They must replace Eric Powell. He was 20 of 24 on field goals, and he had a 56-yarder last year, which was tied for the longest in the FBS. Also did kickoffs. 31 of his 68 kickoffs were touchbacks. It's a very good player. And now they have an open competition between 2 guys, and Blake Mazza and Jack Crane trying to fill that spot.
And the extra point is up by Crane, and it's good. So Crimson scores first. They lead 7-0. Tinsley went 7 of 9 for 45 yards on the drive. 4 of those targets to Kyle Sweet, 53 yards.
Kyle Sweet did an excellent job. The star of that drive, without question, was Trey Tinsley. 7 for 9, but one of those was a drop by James Williams. Done a really good job getting the ball out of his hands quickly.
Oh, let's get down on the sidelines with Cindy Brunson.
On the sidelines here with president of the university, Kirk Schultz. This game has been played at Joe Albi Stadium since 2011, but Prez, I'm hearing rumors that this game might shift back to Pullman next year. What's the latest?
Well, Pat Chun is talking to Coach Leach, and we're certainly considering that doing this back in Pullman with our renovated stadium and suites and RV parking lot open and some of those things would be a really good idea for us. And I think the city of Spokane is actually looking at doing some demolition here and rebuilding a different stadium. So I think we're going to continue to be invested in the Spokane community, but a spring game back in Pullman would be really fun for all of us.
I think you made a lot of Cougar Nation happy with that statement right there. You have 7 home games again this season for a 3rd straight year. What does that mean to the university?
Well, it's great. We have, probably 50,000 people coming into town, seeing their professors, walking through campus, just celebrating when the Cougs are playing in town. And it's important to local businesses too. They count on all those folks coming in and going to restaurants, buying Coug gear and things like that. So, and we have a great stadium. It's a wonderful home crowd. It's an intimidating environment. And so we want it to be the hardest place to play in the Pac-12.
You mentioned your new athletic director, Pat Chun. Long process in selecting him and getting him here from Florida Atlantic University. On the day he was announced, you said he's a game changer for this program. How?
Pat brings energy, enthusiasm. Anybody who's met Pat feels like they've known him for a long time. And we just felt moving forward, especially with fundraising, philanthropy, and development, that's where we've got to emphasize the Coug athletic program moving forward. We need more people to step up. We got to continue to improve the facilities that Bill Moose put in place. But Pat's going to be a game changer because he brings some expertise from both Ohio State, where he was the number 2 person, and Florida Atlantic, where he received a larger gift to support athletics than any gift we've ever received at WSU for athletics. So Pat knows what to do, and based on his first head coaching hire he made, I think we got great years ahead of us with him at the helm.
All right, thanks so much. I'll let you get back to watching the Cougar football team play.
Thank you. Go Cougs.
All right, thank you, Cindy. And Cindy, of course, a graduate of Washington State, so happy to be back in the area. Throw out in the flat and down the sideline for a big gain for the Gray team. Travell Harris, freshman, redshirt freshman from Tampa, made it work.
Yeah, some of these pass-friendly options, in this case, Anthony Gordon, now the signal caller, and offensive coordinator and head coach Mike Leach doing a good job of letting these guys get the ball out of their hands quickly. Now, the air raid offense has built-in answers to a lot of what they're going to see for a defense. That's Mike Leach's calling card. He doesn't really make a whole lot of changes to what he does because he feels like he has answers built into most of what or almost all of what he's going to see. And that helps young quarterbacks. As long as they fully understand what they're supposed to do, it really is helpful. That's an incomplete pass.
That ball is incomplete. Anthony Gordon is the quarterback now, number 18, a prolific passer from San Francisco Community College, a junior. Where's number 18?
Timing becomes a big part of this.
Hello.
Sometimes those passes look a little easier to us than they actually come to be, but I've been also keeping an eye on the receiver situation. They've done a good job of dividing up the receivers and giving both quarterbacks a chance to work with some of their best receiving options. Tay Martin here on the Gray team, and Kyle Sweet was on the other team on that first possession.
And that ball in and out of the hands of the intended receiver, Brandon Arconato, out in the on the far side of the field.
And if we could talk about the defense for a second, establishing depth on the secondary. Jalen Thompson, number 34, not on the field right now, but he was their star last year. And they also used Darian Moulton. They expect Sean Harper Jr. to man down one of the corner spots. Skylar Thomas, coming off a redshirt year, should man down the free safety spot. And at the nickel position, Hunter Dale, number 26, had a big role last year. But outside of those guys, they really need to establish depth.
All right, Gordon drops back. Now he has to avoid the pressure, and the pass complete inside the 15-yard line. Strong throw to the outside to Desmond Patman, the junior from San Diego. And Patman has the first down. That's a good throw.
Yeah, really nice throw. Good route as well. Had good separation. And the amazing thing about these Washington State offenses is there's so many guys at receiver. Sometimes you see guys pop up and you say, oh, Desmond Patman. You might not know a whole lot about him. Played in all 13 games last year, 35 catches, 379 yards. Like, those are numbers that
those are
impressive numbers. Now I know they throw it a lot, but he wasn't really necessarily a featured receiver, but at the same time, an experienced guy that's been productive. And they're just loaded with guys like this. They have guys all over the place that can catch the football.
Yeah, Patman 6'4" as well, so he liked the size, 6'4", 212. Throw to the end zone. There's going to be a penalty here as the defender, number 28, Skylar Thomas, was holding the receiver. And that will be interference against the Crimson squad. So what do you think about what the president of the university was saying? They're going to move this game back to Pullman. Martin Stadium's been redone. It's beautiful. And this stadium's probably going to undergo some construction, so it makes sense, I would think, for next year.
Yeah, Martin Stadium and Pullman and, the entire campus, just a beautiful place. Obviously, for you and me, travel becomes a little bit more difficult. It's nice to be right next to the Spokane airport, but we'll make the drive, though, because Martin Stadium is a special place and has one of the best broadcast booths in the entire conference.
You're signing me up.
Very
spacious. You're signing me up.
I'll do a commercial for it if they need me to.
All right. Mike Crispino, Evan Moore, Cindy Brunson here for Washington State's Crimson and Gray game. Now let's see what happens here. They're down inside the 5-yard line. One running back set left of Gordon, and he drops the snap. Now has to roll right and throw it away, and that could have been a sack if everybody was playing full speed. All right, let's drop back down to the sidelines and talk with Cindy Brunson.
Thanks so much. I just want to chime in on the travel to Pullman. I work all around the Pac-12 just like you do, Evan, and I can tell you it's easier to get from Spokane to Pullman than it is from Portland to Eugene or Corvallis. So put on your big boy pants and get ready to go to Pullman.
I like that.
She's right.
Little geography lesson for you.
The only thing I'll say is you can also, I think there's more flights into Eugene than there is into Pullman. So maybe I can fly directly into Eugene. But, Cindy and I, we'll discuss this a little bit later.
Cindy, they want everything, yes, soft. They want everything easy. They want to get on the highway, have no cars, but that's not going to happen. All right, Gordon drops back. Short completion to Jameer Calvin, the wide receiver that Mike Leach was talking about. The coaches, when we talk to them during the week, will throw a lot of names around. And you try to jot them down and try to look for them at the practices and at the game. They've got so many, so much personnel working in these spring practices. How do you really pinpoint which players are having a great spring and which players you're going to really look to in the fall?
Yeah, well, if you're a coach, you head into these drills and these spring practices that, there we go, Max Borghi with the touchdown.
Yep, that's the guy they talked about, a freshman running back.
And what did they say repeatedly to us over the course of our phone call with Mike Leach this week? He said, hey, one of the things I love about Max Borghi, and you'll see it right here, he falls forward. He says he is one tough dude, and he's incredibly strong for only being a true freshman. He has great feet and fundamentals. And when you fall forward like this on a regular basis, you're going to find yourself getting more and more reps, especially down inside the 5-yard line, just like they did for a touchdown.
Yeah, keep an eye on number 21, that's for sure. He should be going to his prom for high school, but he's on campus playing football for Washington State right now.
Yeah, one of a few early enrollees that are expected to make an impact this year.
All right, Blake Mazza for the extra point, and that one is good. So again, the competition for place kicker, how important is that? I mean, to me, that can make or break a season if you've got a field goal kicker that you can trust. We'll be back, take a short break. There it is, the freshman Max Borghi. A little history of Joe Albi Stadium when we return. The Crimson has 7, the Gray has 7. We continue on Pac-12 Network.
You're watching Pac-12 Network, where champions play.
They need more space.
Is your mom in there?
Since Nana's moved in plan.
Nope.
Let us help with your plan.
Yeah, we can do that.
Well, that sounds like a plan.
Start a plan that flexes with yours. New York Life.
We can stop to make sure someone is okay.
Get in the way and disrupt the situation.
Get someone a cab.
Or walk them home safely.
We can change the language around rape.
We cannot be bystanders.
Taking action isn't always easy.
But
it's on us
to intervene.
Because we can.
Learn more and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
At Maui Gym, we're inspired by color, driven by clarity, and dedicated to improving your view no matter your vision. Our prescription sunglasses are the most technologically advanced available and are 10 times more accurate than those produced by conventional labs. Our Polarized Plus 2 technology enhances color and blocks harmful rays, while our digital processing allows for the widest possible field of vision. Speak to your eye care professional and discover greater clarity with Maui Gym. The view's better from here.
Let's have one more.
2?
Make that 2 more plans.
Sweetie?
Let us help with your plan.
We can do that.
Sounds like a plan.
Start a plan that flexes with yours. New York Life.
Washington State University, an institute of...
Wait, let me show you WSU. We're about being hands-on and getting our hands dirty. We bring art to science and science to wine. We build Mars rovers and launch new medical schools, with the occasional pizza break. Now back to work, because we're always moving forward and leaving our mark on the world. Now that's my WSU.
Welcome back to Joe Albi Stadium. It is the WSU annual Crimson and Gray game, and we are tied at 7 apiece. A little history for you about Joe Albi Stadium. Original capacity was 25,000, currently seats just under 29,000. This venue hosted Elvis Presley in 1957, Billy Graham in 1982, and guys from 1950 to 1983, this was the home of Cougar football.
And they expect to renovate, make it, contemporary per se. But it's a kind of a cool stadium, I think. I like the end zones where the folks can stand up and get a good view. I like it.
Yeah.
Also, like there's plenty of room for tailgating out there.
Yeah, that's always a good thing.
I try to park, politically, so I can walk through all the areas where they're tailgating, just in case someone invites me. I've been practicing that for a long time.
Yeah.
It works, actually.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
If you wave a hand, right hand, usually left, whatever, and just say hello to people, invariably they invite you over.
Yeah, I love it.
You can try that on the way out.
Yeah, I will, absolutely. I'm going to take that. You're a wise man, Mike. I'm going to follow what you say.
I wouldn't take that advice too often, but
as we enter this drive once again with the Trey Tinsley-led offense, I think it's we talked about position battles. They're going on all over the field, and we know they had some guys to replace this year on the offensive line. The guys that has a big play to Kyle Sweet once again. It'll break down in the secondary there. Kyle Sweet all the way down inside the 10-yard line. Boy, he's had a productive day so far. Trey Tinsley's got to feel good about him. Really nice throw. Now, granted, Kyle Sweet ends up wide open, broken coverage on the back end, but he floats that thing nicely right over his shoulder. And Kyle Sweet does the rest. Boy, has he been productive so far today.
Yeah, look how much time Gordon had to throw the football there. And he was right on target. He's a big man. Gordon, 6'3", 190. And so far, so good for him. Kind of a windy day here, so it's something that you would, or Trey Tinsley rather was the quarterback in that particular sequence, but kind of a windy day here, and that can affect the way the ball flies through the air, as you would know.
Yeah, and one of the things, weather can become an issue up in Pullman at times, and there is a way to, and I'm not a quarterback, but there is a way to throw the football to have that thing cut through the air better than others, especially on deep balls, where that point tends to cut through the air better than others, and Trey Tinsley's showing a good job here today in doing that.
Yeah, Tinsley to the flat for Roderick Fisher. And let's see, did he get into the end zone or did he step out? I think he's out of bounds at the 1-yard line.
Roderick Fisher, another early enrollee. He's one of a few guys that got here early after leaving high school early. It's a nice job after the catch, using his block. Tries to tightrope that sideline, doesn't quite make it. We don't have the luxury of replay here today. Maybe that's something they would look at again, but nonetheless, they find themselves knocking on the door once again.
Yeah, Fisher is a blazing quick receiver. His 100 meters set a record. Washington State at 10.4. And the carry up the middle stopped by the defense.
Now that's an interesting play because that's something that Washington State has not had a lot of success doing in tight spaces like this, running the football. And if they're going to be better at it this year, it's going to be replacing some key guys that are gone from last year. Cody O'Connell's the consensus All-American at left guard last year. Cole Madison was a right tackle. He was an all-conference player. Those two guys, and B.J. Samuelson was the right guard, but they're replacing 3 starters. And then from left to right, number 60, Andre Dillard. As of now, number 65, Josh Watson. Played 3 games last year. At center, Fred Mauingoa. He's a returning starter. And number 74, Robert Valencia at right guard. Noah Osher-Myers could spell him from time to time. And at right tackle, number 78, Abe Lucas, who they've been really happy with this year so far over the course of the spring.
3rd and goal, and a touchdown throw to Roderick Fisher on the slant by Trey Tinsley. So the offensive line holds up well enough to get the short completion into the end zone. And Tinsley's got another touchdown pass.
I've been really impressed so far with Trey Tinsley taking the snap, getting his hands on the laces, getting the ball out quickly and accurately, in a catchable fashion to these receivers. He's done a really, really nice job today. He looks very comfortable. And if you talk to guys around the program, they make it really clear. Look, Luke Falk was probably the most humble guy you'll ever play with. Cool hand Luke. He was always the same guy. Trey Tinsley's got a little flair to him from what I understand. A very confident guy. Brings an element maybe they haven't had at that position the last few years. Maybe take a little more risks at that position. It's going to be interesting to see him come along. But by all accounts, he's a very confident kid.
Jack Crane from 27 yards, 37 yards out, misses it wide right. His first miss of the spring practice sessions. He had gone 7 for 7. Here's another look at the touchdown.
Roderick Fisher does a nice job of seeing that second hole. You saw right there, he was covered in that first hole, ends up just shuffling his feet. And for a young guy that was in high school about 2 months ago, that's a great job of making himself friendly to the quarterback as a good receiving option.
Another look at some of the coaches. 6 new coaches on the staff. Steve Spurrier Jr. working with the outside receivers. He was at South Carolina with his dad, Steve Spurrier. Of course, Mason Miller, the offensive line coach. He's got a lot of new faces to work with. Was a fullback under Leach at Valdosta State back in the mid-90s. So familiar faces, familiar personnel, and relationships, networking. You find it a lot in college football.
The guy that I would circle right there is Mason Miller. He replaced Clay McGuire, who's down at Texas Tech now with Cliff Kingsbury. And Mason Miller has his hands full. He's got a lot of guys to replace. They allowed too many hits last year on Luke Falk. They were bottom of the conference in protecting Luke Falk as far as allowing sacks. Nice throw to Tay Martin over the middle. They allowed too many sacks last year. They were bottom of the conference in sacks allowed. And the game that really sticks out for me for this Washington State offense, which I know everyone knows I'm going to say it, is the Cal game down in Berkeley. They got absolutely destroyed. And Luke Falk threw 5 picks and had 2 fumbles. And that was largely a function of the pressure he was getting all night long. Justin Wilcox did a good job of confusing this offensive line, but Mason Miller has to get these guys ready to roll because they have to. Whoever ends up under center this year doesn't have a whole lot of experience, so they need to protect this guy to give him time to throw the football.
Yeah, 7 turnovers in that Cal game, and they got handled easily. Here's the throw over the middle to Tay Martin, and tried to slip out of the tackle. Short gain is Anthony Gordon back under center, 6'3", 190, junior out of Pacifica, California. We mentioned went to San Francisco Community College. There are a number of transfers in college football these days. How they acclimate to the highest level of college football is important. And you get started in these spring games and these spring practices.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what the spring is for. They try to make it as real as possible. On that one, Tay Martin, that's their quick answer. Most of these air raid concepts, these passing concepts that Mike Leach draws up, have quick answers. On that one, it was Tay Martin on the shallow cross. Tay Martin last year's 31 catches, 366 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Really came on the second half of the year, especially in the bowl game.
And Gordon's throw downfield near the 40-yard line broken up. Intended for Jameer Calvin. Here's a look at some of the new defensive coaches. We mentioned 6 new coaches. We talked about Tracy Claeys. Kendrick Shaver, the safeties coach after 7 years at Utah State. Matt Brock, special teams. Outside linebackers, last 2 years at Bowling Green. And you know from listening to Mike Leach talk to Sidney Brunson how important special teams are to him. And they practice it twice every practice, which is twice as much as what most coaches will do for special teams. Reminds me of Frank Beamer and his days at Virginia Tech. They always had great special teams, always impacted the game.
Yep.
And the throw complete for a first down.
If I can be cynical for a minute, Mike, you talk to every coach around the country, and they'll sit there and they'll tell you every time we spend more time on special teams than everybody else does. So if I listen to what every coach says around the country, pardon me, Mike Leach, you make it sound, everyone basically makes it sound like no one else works on special teams. Well, every team I played for, special teams was an emphasis, and each time the coach would tell us, no one else is doing this, so we're going to do this. It's like, well, you guys can't all say that. I mean, what's the deal? You meet twice for special teams. I get it.
Wait a minute. So you don't really believe he was telling Cindy Brunson the truth? Oh my goodness.
Cindy always gets the inside scoop.
She gets it all out of him. I'll tell you that. Max Borghi, nice play, good catch, and a good second effort. A gain of about 4 there. So far in spring, Mike Leach was saying that Anthony Gordon has shown the better arm strength, a little more precision, whereas Trey Tinsley had a better command of the offense. So how do you analyze that? What do you do with information like that if you're the head coach? Do you believe everything you see in spring? Do you make a decision based on what you see in spring?
Well, I think you have to. I mean, this is the only sample size you have to work with these guys under, in real bullets, if you will, under the lights and watching them perform. I mean, this is as real a football as you've seen them play at this level. So this is the best sample size you're going to have. Another good job by Max Borghi.
Yeah, a little shake and bake. Nice stutter step. Gets him an extra 4 yards and brings up 3rd and short.
That graphic we looked at earlier regarding the turnover with the defensive head coaches. Tracy Claeys talked about pursuit of the football quite a bit. Now, Max Borghi makes some really good open field moves there, but my questions for him over the course of the week, we're finding out what can we expect from an identity standpoint when it comes to this Washington State defense now that there's somebody new calling the plays, that Alex Grinch is gone. Because we talked about the speed D quite a bit last year and the things that they do up front, given the lack of size, but the presence of really elite speed with Hercules Mataafa and a few other guys. What can we expect? And Tracy Claeys was really honest. He said, look, we're going to be aggressive. Now, it's a nice athletic play by Arcanato. We're going to be aggressive, but he said it's obviously all subject to our personnel. I'm going to learn a lot about our guys over the course of the spring and also heading into training camp. And when you talk about a defensive coordinator being aggressive, now, yeah, ideally, you look back to like the Rex Ryan days with Darrelle Revis and Antonio Cromartie. You like to see guys man up on the outside, and then inside the box you can be creative and do a lot of different things. Again, very athletic move here. Nice play. You like to see guys be able to man up on the outside. That's what Tracy Claeys ultimately wants. Now, he just has to find out if he has the personnel to do that. It sounds great in theory to be aggressive as a defensive coordinator, especially on the back end and bringing your safeties down and providing extra pressure on the quarterback. But unless you can hold up with a deep secondary, which he'll find out if they have, he's going to be limited on what he can do. So he's going to find out what his personnel will allow him to do over the course of the spring.
Keith Harrington dropped for a loss there. That was a nice reception and run by Brandon Arcanato just a moment ago. He's a junior from Chino Hills, California. But don't you think in these spring practices and most of these spring games, and we've done a few of them, the offense is such the emphasis, it's hard to find real analysis of what the defenses are trying to do, yeah. I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, you take away, for the most part, you take away that pass rush option. You got guys tagging off and whatnot on the quarterback because you're not going to hit him. You're not hitting him today. You're not normally going to hit him anyways in practice. And so you don't really know what presence your pass rush will bring until you hit real live action in the fall. But you're absolutely right. You just never know until you hit live action.
All right, we'll step aside. Second quarter coming up in just a moment. Crimson Gray from Washington State on Pac-12 Network.
When I needed a bank, I wanted someone who aligned with who I am. A challenger who, regardless of size, has what it takes to seize the deal. That's the difference between the small guys and the giants. When you're small, you know you have to be special. Opus Bank offers the capital and counsel you need to take your business to the next level. I know because it's what they do for me. Opus Bank, official partner of Isaiah Thomas and the Pac-12 Conference.
We clearly need to rethink security for our new home.
Yikes. Well, with Xfinity Home, you'll have everything you need to protect your home with 24/7 professional monitoring that you can access anywhere.
Xfinity Home cameras.
Xfinity Home. Simple, easy, awesome. Add Xfinity Home and get up to 5 extra door and window sensors. Plus, add 24/7 video recording and get a free camera. Call, go online, or demo in an Xfinity store today.
So you'll be here to help if I need you?
Kyle, I got you.
Okay. What about here?
Yep.
Here?
Yep.
Is that for us?
It sure is.
Gimme, gimme.
What about here?
Here too, Kyle.
And here's Sir Robert from State Farm.
If you invite me.
He said yes! Isaiah! Let's battle!
Go with the one that's here to help life go right. State Farm.
Welcome back to the Crimson and Gray game. Washington State last year, great start, 6 straight wins, 3rd straight winning season. First time that's happened in over 15 years. But the finish was not what they were hoping for. They split their last 6 Pac-12 games. And Luke Falk had a fabulous career. Pac-12 leader in yards, touchdowns, completions, completion percentage. Had 30, count them, 30 300-yard plus passing games. So they got to find a way to replace Falk as they get through the spring practice in this final spring game and then get into the fall. The throw deep downfield and a good defensive play that time by number 22. Pass intended for Jameer Calvin, and Deion Singleton with a nice defensive play.
Yeah, just throwing it up, trying to give him a chance. And Deion Singleton does a really good job of staying on top of the receiver, not interfering, keeping that offhand off the receiver and batting the ball down.
Singleton, a junior out of Tallahassee, Florida.
Another guy competing to get inside some of that depth that they're trying to establish on the back end and know they can hold up, and it gives Tracy Claeys a lot of latitude to do different things schematically.
Yeah, I mentioned Tracy Claeys has developed quite a few defensive backs and ended up in the NFL over the last few years in his career. Eric Murray at Kansas City, Devondre Campbell at Atlanta. You got to, make mention of that because it shows that he can find players and then coach them up. Here's the Cougars' 17 schedule. Wins over Montana State, Boise State, Oregon State. All those home games to start, 5-0 start, and then the big win at Oregon. But then they came crashing down at California before shutting out Colorado. And the finish, including the loss to Michigan State in the Holiday Bowl. They gave up 83 points, scored only 31 in their last 2 games. And a lot of what people will remember about the season were in those 2 games. But you have to factor in the 3rd straight winning season for this program.
Yeah, the issues really started to present themselves at Arizona there in late October. Getting shredded by Khalil Tate. He took advantage of a lot of lack of, what we call gap integrity by the Washington State defense. Now, then they have a road win at Utah, but then really their 2 biggest games of the season, the Apple Cup and also against Michigan State in the Holiday Bowl, they lost 41-14 and then 42-17. And for the biggest games, for the defense not to show up like we had seen them do for the better part of the year, leaves a bad taste in people's mouth. Now, starting off really well, 5-0 at home. Schedule's a little bit different this year, a little more balanced. Having all those home games early on is great, but then you hit October, November, and you find yourself on the road quite a bit. It becomes pretty difficult.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that schedule a little bit later on. Jack Crane, though, from 39 yards out, back to his form of the spring. He's now 8 of 9. He's had 5 kicks, 40 yards or better, and 1 from 39, and now he has another from 39. So he's showing he's got the distance, and it looks like Mike Leach might have found his place kicker. And look at the 2018 schedule. Look to the back end this time. They have 3 of their last 4 at home, and they could be crucial. California, Arizona, and a revenge game with Washington after what happened last year. Huskies have beaten them 5 straight times, so that's got to be something sticking to the craw a little bit of Mike Leach.
Yeah, outside of last year, they have had an issue with FCS teams at home. In 2015, lost to Portland State following your Eastern Washington. So I don't want to overlook those first 3 games, but obviously the real test comes at USC on September 21st. But if there's a team that can't overlook these FCS teams, it's Wazoo, because they've had bad fortune with those teams as of late. But one thing to keep in mind about this schedule and how it shapes up, the Pac-12 North is an interesting situation because Oregon is getting better. They have one of the best the best quarterbacks in the conference in Justin Herbert, and Cal is also improving mightily under Justin Wilcox, and we expect them to be much better again this year. So it's a crowded North because with UW and Stanford, and now you throw Oregon and possibly Cal into the mix, and Oregon State obviously with Jonathan Smith as their head coach, they're coming along. But this is going to be, with all the attrition that Washington State has dealt with here, and you have a North division that's only getting better. This isn't the South. The South has a lot of question marks, but the North is a top-heavy division with a lot of really, really good football teams. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out and how Washington State fits into that mold.
Now, my question is 5 new coaches. How good can they be in their very first years with their universities?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with what the situation they're inheriting. You look at Chip Kelly. They got a long way to go. They got some things to build down there. Historically, one of the worst defenses we've seen in a long time. Now, could he change things? Absolutely. They have athletes. But the intriguing one to me is Kevin Sumlin down in Arizona. You know, he inherits Khalil Tate and a lot of really good young players on defense. And the expectations at times with someone at A&M were almost unrealistic, and I think he's probably got a chip on his shoulder. And the timing worked out well for them to bring him in. It's going to be really interesting to see how much he brings along Khalil Tate, because his offensive coordinator, Noel Mazzoni, has a really good reputation in that regard for developing guys like that. So I am very interested to see what they do in the South this year, outside of, I think, Utah, obviously, every year, one of the most consistent teams in the conference.
And a pass through the hands that time of Roderick Fisher. Armani Marsh, number 35, defensively in gray, is a freshman, redshirt from right here in Spokane, went to Gonzaga Prep. He's in the backfield right now for Tracy Clay. Let's keep an eye on him, see how he's doing. You get a young guy, a freshman, first year, even though he's red-shirted, it's still youth, it's still experience, it's still figuring out what's going on at this level.
You have to approach it differently. Obviously, as a freshman, you spend the whole year knowing that you're not going to be taxed with anything other than just practice. And now you have these stressors put on you of actually winning a spot. And the mindset changes completely, and you don't always know how young guys are going to respond to that. And I think that's something you have to keep in mind too up front. You know, Tracy Claeys likes what he has up front on this defensive line and really the linebacker position. A lot of young guys, not a ton of experience with the exit of Hercules Mataafa and the other guys we discussed earlier. But I'm really anxious this year to see Nnamdi Aguayo, number 30, who kind of becomes Hercules' replacement. He's a lighter guy, built on speed, 6 starts last year, 34 tackles, 7 tackles for a loss. And if you go down that defensive line to see what we could expect from the Cougars this year, Taylor Comfort at defensive tackle, played in all 13 games last year. Nick Begg has done a really good job this spring. Dallas Hobbs right behind him.
And number 89, number 98. Let's keep an eye on those guys, see how they're doing here.
Number 45, Logan Tago, played in all 13 games last year and had a start. I mean, these are all guys that are going to need to step up this year that might not have a ton of experience or production in their past, but this staff feels like they're very capable.
The penalty flag comes out. Little pass into the flat to Max Borge. He has a short gain back to the line of scrimmage, basically. Now, they've got to replace all those, pressure guys, those defensive linemen who came up with sacks. I mean, those are big numbers that they've got to find somebody to get pressure on these quarterbacks in the Pac-12.
Well, you said it, Mike. I mean, Hercules Mataafa led the Pac-12 in sacks and tackles for a loss. Talk about being disruptive. And this is a guy that, maybe is no more than 250 pounds and would find himself at nose tackle quite a bit. And that's where the whole speed D element comes in. It's kind of the equalizer there, a little bit smaller up front, but they would do different things with stemming before the snap, which means that they would shift gaps before the ball is snapped to confuse the offensive line. And if you can cause those offensive linemen to be one step slower, well, our speed then takes over, and that's what they were able to do.
Pass out on the flat on the far side of the field. Nice move for the moment by Tamar. Short gain of about 6. And we talk about some of these losses. Luke Falk, of course, and all those passing yards and all those touchdowns and all those wins. Jamal Morrow, a running back that was very productive. And the offensive line, which you talked about. These guys were solid up front.
And Hercules Mataafa and Daniel Equali, 2 quality guys up front, and at linebacker Isaac Dotson and Frankie Luvu, 2 guys that really benefited from what Hercules Mataafa did. He was so good on the interior more often than not that he would open things up on the outside for guys like Frankie Luvu to be second on the team in sacks like he was last year.
Oh, slant complete. Good yardage inside the 35-yard line. Kyle Sweet made the catch. He's had a great day.
There we go, some NFL draft work. Luke Falk, the prolific quarterback here. By all accounts, his stock has only increased over the last couple weeks. Tony O'Connell and Cole Madison both expected to be drafted offensive linemen. Hercules Mataafa, the biggest question with him is what position? Is he a tweener? Is he a true linebacker? Is he a true defensive lineman? NFL guys like to put people in boxes and put labels on them, and I think Hercules Mataafa, the issue becomes what position does he play? And if he's going to play linebacker, how does he do out in space when he drops back into pass coverage? Those are things they're going to want to see from him. So certainly an elite talent at the college level, and it's going to be interesting to see how his prospects relate to the NFL level and how they look at him and what position they decide to put him in.
I want to correct myself. Desmond Patman made the last reception. He's the junior from San Diego, and that's Max Borghi, the freshman who, as you said earlier, he runs downhill a little bit for a man who's not huge, but he seems to be able to find the holes, stay balanced, and be able to elude some early tacklers, and that's a great ability to have if you're a running back in college football. Anthony Gordon's the quarterback. They're inside the 30-yard line here in the second quarter of the Crimson and Gray game. Throw out into the flat, and it's complete to Jameer Calvin, the wide receiver. Sophomore, 5'10", 155. Beautiful day for football. Here's the new Pac-12 coaches. Kevin Sumlin, a great run at Texas A&M. Herm Edwards,
great run at ESPN
from the studio. That one surprised me, I got to say. Mario Cristobal, I know a little bit about him from his Florida Atlantic days as he got that program off the ground. Jonathan Smith, Oregon State, and Chip Kelly, he's a legend at Oregon.
Yep. He's the splash hire of the conference this year. No question about that. I mean, that guy, he hasn't been in college football for a while, but his name still resonates with recruits. We can't help but wonder how things play out there.
Oh, a deflection. It looked like interference and a touchdown catch for Desmond Patman.
Yeah, I think Marcus Strong, the corner, number 4, got there a little early. But a really good job by Desmond Patman coming back and competing for the football. You'll see here the ball's actually a little underthrown. Throws it behind him just a little bit, but this is a broken play, more or less a scramble drill. And that's a difficult thing if you're Marcus Strong and you're not looking at the football like he wasn't right there, and you go to make a play on it, and you make contact with the offensive player, they're going to call that every time. But a really good job by Desmond Patman coming down with that football and competing for it. He's done a nice job here today as well.
Now, the quarterback had about 5 seconds to throw. That's one of the things about these spring games that are not what you were probably going to see in the fall. And we get Mazza to do the kicking here for the extra point. Blake, the freshman, transfer from Arkansas.
Mike Emmett, our San Francisco studios, coming up at the top of the hour. Those watching Washington State spring football on Pac-12 Network will be leaving for the start of the Oregon spring game. If you want to continue watching the Cougs at that time, tune into Pac-12 Washington or the Pac-12 Now app.
Desmond Patman, who just caught the touchdown pass a moment ago, 6'4", 220, a junior. Gotta like that size. I mean, if you're throwing downfield, you're a quarterback, and you got receivers that have 2 or 3 inch advantage. Yep. You're going to get some catches that maybe you aren't guys that are 5'11".
Well, that was a good example. We talk about security blankets. I mean, when things break down, you develop good chemistry with these guys and trust them, letting the ball go. It's interesting to watch both these quarterbacks go at it today. Here's an interesting stat for you, Mike. Mike Leach has coached 76 games at Washington State. Only 2 of those 76 has he started the game with a QB that he signed as a scholarship QB out of high school. That is just unbelievable to me. 40 other times he started a walk-on. Now, a lot of those obviously were Luke Falk. But if you look at Trey Tinsley, walk-on, former walk-on, or walk-on that wasn't a scholarship player out of high school for Mike Leach. And also Anthony Gordon, he's a JC guy. So if either one of those guys ends up under center this year, that trend will continue for Mike Leach. And what I think that means,
that's my question.
It's more than just, it's more, you know, a lot of times these schools end up with these 5-star athletes at that position that are just destined for success, the Andrew Lucks of the world. But I think what that says is in this offense and in this system, now I don't want to label these guys as only system guys, because I think Luke Falk is a lot more than that. But I think what it says is Mike Leach feels like, hey, I want a guy that throws with touch, that throws with accuracy, and that really understands my system. I'm not as concerned about having a guy that has a cannon for an arm and has all the measurables, all the numbers that we all look for when we rank recruits coming out of high school. Give me a guy that really understands my system, has good touch, can throw with anticipatory skills, and gets rid of the football. And I think you have a chance in this system. And more often than not, it's not those guys that have the rocket arms and are huge recruits out of high school. And he's just fine with that. But I think that is that's a really, really interesting stat.
And there still may be a graduate transfer on the way for the fall sessions at quarterback for this Washington State team. That remains to be seen. So, but a great opportunity here in the spring for Trey Tinsley. Cameron Cooper, we're going to see him in just a moment. A kid from Utah, freshman, lefty.
Yeah, he's a 4-star recruit out of Utah. Gatorade Player of the Year in the state of Utah. He holds a single-season record of 4,726 passing yards in high school. That's incredible. And I think, going back, this is a kid that was obviously offered out of high school by Mike Leach, and the assumption is, oh, wow, you got this all-world guy coming in, like, he's going to start this year. But to my point earlier, like Mike Leach says, hey, I don't really, nice run by James Williams, I don't really believe in freshman sensations. He's talking about, if you look at what Georgia did this year with Jake Fromm and what Alabama did with Tua, he doesn't really believe in that. He thinks in this system, it just really takes time. And even if Cam Cooper ends up redshirting this year, it's not a failure. It's just going to take him time to really understand what they're doing, because this system is something that Mike Leach believes is a real asset, like we mentioned earlier about his streak of walk-on quarterbacks. And Cam Cooper has a chance to break that streak. Really good football player.
Mike Emmons at our San Francisco studios, and if you want to continue watching Washington State spring football, tune into Pac-12 Washington or the Pac-12 Now app. For those watching it on Pac-12 Network, we're going to take you to Eugene, Oregon for the Ducks spring football game.
The great football tradition, I don't think that the entire country understands the standard that has been set.
Welcome to Autzen Stadium.
And now we carry the weight of that. And our players understand that. We are borrowing these jerseys. It's our job to elevate the standard, to create that legacy.
And Herbert on 3rd and long to throw. Back, plenty of protection. Downfield, going for Schooler, the end zone. He got it! He made the catch!
For years, Duck fans have poured into this stadium to see some of the greatest players in the history of the Pac-12 Conference. Today, they arrived to see Mario Cristobal's first spring game as the head football coach of the Oregon Ducks, taking over for Willie Taggart. It is the Oregon football spring game inside Autzen Stadium here in Eugene. Hello, everybody, and welcome inside the broadcast booth along with the former Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year, Ryan Leaf, and Jill Savage on our sidelines. I'm Guy Haberman. As you well know, nearly half the league has a new head football coach. 5 new coaches in the Pac-12, but only 1 promoted from within, Mario Cristobal. How does that help the Ducks?
Tremendously. Their ability to stay in-house builds that continuity. They kept both offense and defensive coordinators. The players haven't had to learn and adjust to new offenses, new defenses. The transition hasn't been there like it has been in these other places. And a lot of teams have been talked about because of the new coaching changes, not here in Eugene, and that's good news.
Well, there is one guy they talk about nonstop. 4 syllables. We heard it from every coach in the team facility yesterday, Justin Herbert.
Yeah, Justin Herbert is arguably the best returning quarterback. His size and athletic ability make him elite at this level, but his ability to run with the football, I think takes him to the next level. The best description I got from Coach Cristobal this week was he was a quarterback with no ego, and that's hard to find these days.
He does not have Royce Freeman any longer, one of the greatest, most prolific rushers in the history of the Pac-12 and Division I football. He does have Tony Brooks-James.
Yeah, TBJ as they call him here. He is the ultimate back, a guy who can play all 3 downs, catch the football out of the backfield, but also use the finesse and power that he's developed in between the tackles.
Jim Mastro, the new running back coach, helping him with that. But you mentioned Jim Leavitt, the returning defensive coordinator. He helped the defense improve by leaps and bounds last year. How can they take another step this year?
Jim Leavitt's blueprint has always been back to front and how he